Much for the report. And joining us now, retired Lieutenant Colonel and former Trump campaign National Security Advisor Tony Shaffer and geopolitical strategist Rina Shah. Welcome to both of you. Colonel Shaffer, out of the gate, want to get your thoughts here.
Sure.
We heard President Trump there saying that he believes of Putin. He would like to end the fighting. What do you think?
I think so. Both sides are exhausted. No matter who you go to for numbers, both the Russians and the Ukrainians have lost thousands, tens of thousands of fighting age men. This is disastrous. And President Trump is trying now to open the door to ending the conflict, much like Ronald Reagan did in the Cold War. Remember, a lot of people are upset because the two men are talking. Katrina, the Cold War was ended in a series of poker games between the Soviet leader Gorbachev and the American leader Reagan. We're going to see something similar here happen. And if you're going to actually play poker, you got to be in the same room that means you got to be talking. So I think that's what we're going to see here. We're going to see the unfolding where the Russians don't win. I think there's going to be some consequences to their bad behavior. At the same time, the fighting has got to stop. We've got to get back to the language of peace, which is commerce, and that's what President Trump's going to be focused on.
Rina, let's get to this. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, he sat down with our very own Greta Van Susteren on how potentially in his mind this could end here. I'm going to bring up that soundbite now.
And I don't see Putin wanting to back off to the lines to 2022. He's certainly not going to go back to 2014. And he doesn't want Ukraine in NATO, so how does this end?
Trump can do it. Trump can do it, and Europe will help him very much if he will allow him, Europeans. I think Trump can do it. He's strong, he can, and he's smart.
Rina, he's putting a ton of faith in our president, Donald Trump, to make it happen and get it done in a peaceful manner in a way he likes. What do you think?
Well, Zelensky has always been extremely complimentary of any American because he's needed America to try to win this fight. And this fight has frankly taken too long. And I hear that in Trump's voice, and not just that he wants a legacy building moment here where he can end this war, this geopolitical tension, whether we're talking Ukraine, Russia, or out with Israel in Gaza. When we're talking about Russia's invasion into Ukraine, we're talking about really the sovereignty of a nation here. But we've come, like I said, too far away from that. So while I'm somebody that believes that diplomacy matters, I understand we've come to this moment where direct confrontation is necessary. One big takeaway here I find very interesting, though, is that Trump is trying to show the full strength of his administration here, deploying Rubio and others, though they will not have any sort of front-facing role while they're actually there. That was very different than Biden and Blinken, where Blinken sort of traveled the world on his own, was always kind of going at it alone. But speaking of going at it alone, I do see one similar thread here. Trump doing this in Saudi Arabia, though this is about Europe, makes this a very different moment here. And I think Zelensky is, of course, in the back of his mind, knowing that he has to listen to the Americans here. He wants to be at the table, much like any husband or wife would want to during a divorce proceeding, want to be at that table to talk about the road forward of the marriage. But again, going back to basics here, we got to understand that Trump wants to try to do this alone so that he can show where the new world order is. Is he taking Putin for what he is? I don't think so. Putin is a very sick man. He sacrificed many of his own people's lives just to try to win this, to keep his ego in check. And I think where this lands up is anyone's guess right now. Very tender moments. But Trump, again, is being trusted to lead by Zelensky. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, and Colonel, another man who is also being trusted. The delegation leading the discussions includes the Secretary of State, of course, Marco Rubio, the National Security Advisor, and surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, the Middle East envoy, Stephen Witkoff. He seems like he's doing very well at making some of these deals. Axios wrote an article about him and his expanding portfolio, and the article quotes a White House official saying the president sees Steve Witkoff as one of the world's great deal makers. Game respects game. We know that Witkoff was very responsible for getting that American freed from a Russian prison just last week.
Yeah, look, he's a deal cutter. He's effective, and I think that's the key word. Effectiveness is something Donald Trump admires. To carry on with what Rina was saying regarding Witkoff and why they're doing this in the Middle East, everything is linked. One of the notable failures and ignorant points of the Biden administration is they treated everything like it was a singular issue, like let's just go over here and meddle here, never comprehending either by policy or by incompetence that everything is linked. The Middle East is definitely linked to the conflict in Ukraine. The Russians are linked to Iran. It's all important. So the fact that President Trump is displaying the overall strength of his cabinet is how he's showing the world he's going to lead us to peace.
All right. Excellent conversation. Tony Shaffer, Rina Shah, we appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina.
Thank you.
Joining us now, the former